Hey, beautiful soul. Welcome to Spirit Speakeasy. I'm Giovanni, Joyful Medium. I'm a working psychic medium, energy healer, and spiritual gifts mentor. This podcast is like a seat at the table in a secret club, but with mediums, mystics, and the spiritual luminaries of our time. So come behind the velvet ropes with me and see inside my world as I chat insider style with profoundly gifted souls. We go deep, share juicy stories, laugh a lot, and it wouldn't be a speakeasy without great insider secrets and tips. You might even learn that you have some gifts of your own. So step inside the Spirit Speakeasy. Hey, beautiful soul. I'm so happy to have you with me today inside the Spirit Speakeasy. If you are a returning listener, I'm so happy to have you. Thanks for coming back for another solo chat with me. And if you're new, welcome. Have a seat at the table and let's get into it. Today, I want to talk about something that can be a little bit controversial even among mediums, and it is about animals on the other side, animals in the spirit world. Now, you may have heard of something called the Rainbow Bridge, which is something I only heard about 10 years ago. It's just a nice way of saying that I think there's a poem that goes with it, but it's essentially about animal souls crossing over this rainbow bridge to go to some version of pet heaven. It's a lovely little sentiment. But what about animals communicating like through a medium? Is that real? How does that work? I do have some experience to speak to this, and it is such a frequently asked question that I thought it would make a great topic. I know I've been asking you guys to write me with any topics that you want to hear about or questions that you have that might make a good topic for these solo chats. So for most people, if you have ever had a pet that you really connected with, I feel like animals are amazing and give so much to our lives, but I feel like some animals we connect with more than others, right? Just like people. If you've ever had an animal that you connected with in a special way, I feel like, will recognize that animal as a soul, a personality with needs and wants, and more than just a living being, but like actually a soul inside that body. I've had a lot of pets over the years, I guess. Growing up, there were so many animals around, but they weren't really necessarily my animals. I did rescue. I did start rescuing cats when I was very young. I don't even know how. There's some funny stories about that. I'll just tell you quickly. There's a story from when I was, I think 2, I must have been, and I was outside playing in the yard, which, kids could do at that age back then that would have been probably 1980. And my parent comes out, and all of a sudden I'm like underneath of a hammock and just laying in the grass. And all of a sudden I have this tiny little kitten. And we had some space around us. We were on, my parents had a good amount of space. So it wasn't like a neighbor was super close. They weren't that far, but they weren't necessarily, that close that it would have been a neighbor's cat that wandered over. And they asked me, like, where did this cat come from? There was no other cat around. There was no other kittens. It was just this one. And I guess my response was something to the effect of, oh, I wanted a kitty, so I asked for a kitty and a kitty came. I always interpret it as that I asked God or spirit universe, my higher self, but my guides, whoever you ask when you kind of send out a prayer or a want. It's crazy that as kids we can manifest like that. And I just was like, and then this cat showed up, and I know that cat lived with us for a while. And then one day didn't live with us anymore. And I guess they were like, what happened to the cat? And I was like, I don't know. I said that it was okay if he went away back to his family. And so he did. I don't know if that is ultimately what happened. I was 2. So who knows? But I hadn't really connected with an animal until, later in my life when we had a dog, which I'm going to tell you about her in a little bit. But if you've ever had a pet that is really a part of a family in the way that you connect with, maybe you have conversations with them, maybe you just have telepathic conversations with them, which I also believe is a thing, that an animal like that is a soul. And it doesn't have to just be a house pet. I'm going to tell you about the first animal that I was aware of in spirit, which was not an in the house pet. Teaser there. So the premise of mediumship itself is that it is a soul to soul communication. So it is the soul of the medium blending with the soul of typically the spirit person, a person who has crossed over to the spirit world, left their physical body. And their soul is blending with the soul of the medium, and it creates a communication, a soul to soul communication. They don't have physical voice box, so there aren't physical words in the same way that when you have a conversation with a person who's living in a body alive right now. But the communication is a soul to soul communication. And that for me translates to animals, which is why I was talking about you understanding that your animal has a soul. If it's a soul to soul communication, you and I, like we just talked about, know very well that we have beloved friends who are animals that are on the other side that are definitely a soul. So why couldn't that soul blend with the soul of a medium for a soul to soul communication? If you have a pet like that or an animal that you loved like that, certainly they communicate in life. So why couldn't they have the intelligence and have the type of soul that can communicate from the other side? For me, it makes perfect sense. I feel like it's a very linear position, if you will. But I hadn't really thought about the theory when I had the experience. So I know I've talked about this a little bit before. Early on, I trained in Reiki and I was just beginning training in psychic development. I had started learning about angels, angel cards, angel tarot. I started learning how to read and was becoming familiar with, the angelic realm, like we talked about, with understanding how to communicate with people's guides. And for some reason, that just was a more natural way into this work for me. I was giving them messages from their guides, sometimes as a part of a Reiki healing. I would just, the way I used to say it, and the language I still have for it, is I was just opening up my awareness to be available for their guides if there was any message or information that I could give them at the end. So that was my intention, always in their highest good. It didn't happen every time, but sometimes it did. And over time, there were certain clients who liked it and were receptive to it. And so I felt a little more comfortable. And this client, it wasn't my first session with them, but it was early on. So we didn't know each other very well. I was really new into these gifts. And I talk about, usually the way I tell the story, I talk about people's loved ones starting to present themselves to me in Reiki sessions, a grandma, a friend, but this is one of those early experiences, except it was not a person, it was a horse. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but imagine me, very new to all of these experiences happening in my personal space bubble here. And I thought it was weird too. And I don't have a comfort with horses. Let me just throw that out there. I am a city girl. I grew up in Boston. I am, to be quite honest, I think horses are beautiful, intelligent creatures. I'm a little scared of them. They're very big. I feel nervous if I didn't have a relationship with a horse, which I never have. They're quite powerful if you've ever been up next to one. And the times when I've done those little horseback riding, my daughter used to be into horses, so I took her to a little horseback riding experience for like one of her birthdays, and I was terrified. So, a lot of love for them, but they're not like a go-to animal for me to think of. I don't know anyone that had horses. I was never really around horses. So I felt and was aware of the nuzzle, like the snout of a horse, the whole face, like the whole front of the head. I was aware of it very close to me, like all over my shoulder, almost like as if an actual horse head was next to me, kind of, I mean, for the lack of better words, invading my space, not in an aggressive way or like a scary way, but just like a too close hello. Like, you know what I mean? Someone that's a very close talker that just, but I was aware of that length and that feeling of that snout or that muzzle of the horse. Not, if you're listening, you can't see me. I am making lots of motions with my hands because it just helps me explain things. I'm Italian at the end of the day. So I was just aware of this horse. And then I was doing her Reiki healing. And as I continued to work with her, by the way, I've got permission to share this story. So for anyone who's thinking about messaging me about that, I do have permission for this one. I always ask permission if I'm going to share a story that's this specific. So essentially, I'm still giving the Reiki and just aware of this horse. And in my mind, what's happening is I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel someone next to me. This is a horse. Is this a thing? This is definitely a horse. There's this nothing else this can be. I'm aware of a horse. This is crazy. I can't believe that I'm gonna have to say to this client that I'm aware of a horse on the other side. And so that was my processing as this is happening. And then I'm just relaxing and giving the healing and being aware. And then I start to feel emotion and personality from this horse. And I'm just like, I just have this agreement with spirit at this time in my work that like, I'm just going to go with it. Whatever I'm experiencing, I'm not going to judge it. We're just going to see what's going to happen. It was kind of my attitude. So, I was aware of some quick flashes of images, which is how it works for me in my mediumistic communication. I could see a big open pasture. It was very specific with the placement of like the fence and the way things were there and the specific types of like flowers or grass. It's been a long time now, so it's hard to remember all the details. I was aware of a flash of like a stable and some like preferred treats and types of attention. I was aware of some things that this horse felt masculine to me. I was aware of some things that he didn't prefer in the way that he liked to work. I knew that he was, ridden in some sort of, I think it's called an arena, the big, where they have the big open horse round corral thing, the arena. So I knew that he was ridden in that way. I knew that he had competed. I knew that there were things that he knew how to do, types of jumps. And I don't know what any of those things were, but I think we've all seen movies and television enough to have seen a horse jump over a hurdle or something. So it looked like that to me. I could see that there were people watching, and I knew that, he had done this in his life. And then I was aware of kind of some personality quirks. There was so much personality with this horse, and all of this while I'm just giving a healing to this client. And so all of this happened within maybe like a 20-minute period, maybe less. And then I finish up the healing, and as is my agreement with spirit at this time, I'm just going to report to this person whatever I've received, and we're going to see what happens. Like I said, this client had been in maybe once before. I know that she was newer with me, but I think I had met her before at least once. And I just was like, okay, I'm just going to say this and we're going to see what happens. And I told her everything that I understood and everything, that I had received, and the specificity about, for me, I was also aware of like an injury or a discomfort in one of the joints, and was telling her that, and was telling her that he was showing himself now, wanting her to think of him, as being in this beautiful open pasture with these certain kind of flowers and these like gorgeous rolling hills. And she validated everything. And she said, yes, I had a horse exactly like that. On this particular occasion, I did have a physical description of the horse, which I don't always have physical descriptions. It's just a sometimes yes and sometimes no thing. And she said, he did look just like that. He did have those personality traits. And one of the funny things is she said, even the way I experienced him, his muzzle just like so close, invading my personal space. She said, that's how he was. That was his personality. He was a bit sassy. He was a bit of a charmer, but he did have some very specific things that he liked and didn't like. And it was such an interesting experience and such a profound experience. And she said, yeah, he did start having problems and, ultimately passed away, but really did prefer the open riding than the structured competitive riding. And she did, end up not doing competitions with him after a while because he just didn't enjoy it, as I believe the way it went. And I just love that he was able to validate for her wanting, to just think of him like essentially almost flying, like his physical body wasn't a challenge. And I felt like we were like, I feel like I talk about this movie occasionally, but The Neverending Story, or maybe just recently I've talked about it a few times in my life, with that luck dragon just flying and soaring. And it was like that, just soaring fast and wind in your hair kind of a feeling over these beautiful pastures. And she said, yeah, that was his favorite place to be. So sometimes messages can come through in the strangest ways. That was my first experience in a mediumistic way, meeting an animal on the other side. And he was a great communicator, but then she, like I said, she validated all of it. So she said, like, he was a really good communicator in life and letting you know when he was happy with you, when he wasn't. He was very affectionate. And she also validated, which like I said, I don't have a lot of experience with horses, so I didn't know that horses do have a lot of personality and are kind of known for each having their own unique and often very specific and distinct personality traits. So it was just such a cool experience. I had never really questioned or had a thought like yes or no as far as like, did I believe animals? I figured they probably go to heaven. I mean, I know if you're in any of the Christian-based faiths, I know they talk about, on the other side, the lion laying down with the lamb and it being so peaceful and all of that. So, which I know is also metaphorical. But does kind of give a nod to pets or animals over there. So in my experience, I feel like they do go to the other side. I feel like they are a soul having an animal experience. I do sometimes wonder even if perhaps, I believe that we are able to come back to reincarnate in different forms and different lifetimes, representing ourselves in different types of bodies. And I sometimes wonder, what if we wanted to come back and have an experience as a horse? Like, are we allowed to do that? I don't know if it's an allowed thing. If we're the creator and the creator of our experience, could we? Maybe, I don't know. Those are the things that I ponder with my medium friends. We all like to have these kind of just pushing the boundaries discussions amongst ourselves. I am going to tell you about my dog and how she came into a reading, which was early on when I was giving readings. Now, as a medium, in my experience anyway, oftentimes the things I'm feeling, sensing, the flashes of pictures that I'm receiving, they're from my own experience. So it's usually, I'll see a flash of a place that I've been, and it's something that I'm drawn to in that place. It could be as simple as there's one specific house that I usually see a flash of, and in this flash, I'm kind of walking down the hallway, and usually it's when I need to talk about the wood paneling, like old fashioned wood paneling, because that's how it works with this soul to soul communication. Is they're using my experiences to help me understand their experience better. Well, I had this client. It was like a couple offices ago. I'm trying to think of how long ago it was. It was definitely pre-pandemic, probably by a couple years even. And they had come in, and we heard from their parents in the session, and it was really lovely communication from their parents. And we had a little time, and they said, actually, um, there's one more that I would really like to hear from. And just then, in my awareness, um, I'll tell you a little bit about her. I just got the sense, the feeling, and almost not quite a visual, but almost. I don't know how to quite explain that. Like I almost imagined it, but not quite. Maybe a little stronger than that, but I didn't like see her with my physical eyes. I just got the sense of my dog who had crossed over. Her name was Cookie, just walking in around the corner and sitting by my feet. And I just kind of dismissed it because I was like, oh, that's just really weird. Now, Cookie, if you've been with me since the beginning, on my old Instagram, the Zen Temple Wellness, I think it's at San Diego Massage, it's still up. There is a picture of Cookie up there. She was the mascot. She is an English bulldog with, if you've ever met an English bulldog, they're the short, wrinkly bulldogs. They have so much personality, and she did not fall short in personality at all, although her little body was short. So she was just a member of our family. She was my daughter's best friend for many years, and was just kind of like another kiddo for me. So I just loved her, and we were all very close with her, and she crossed over. And I hadn't really had a lot of like visitations from her, experiences. Like sometimes I'm aware, like I feel like I'm a sense or aware of my loved ones. I hadn't really had that very much with her, maybe a little bit, but not much. And so, or just not for a while. So I hadn't really thought of her. And then all of a sudden she just kind of was in my awareness. And I told my client, I was like, give me just a second here. Cause I'm not sure. And at that time, I was working on the more strict end of the work, and I just wasn't bringing forward a lot of animal communication. And I don't, in a psychic capacity, I don't work with animals in the living. I mean, I sometimes will for like friends' animals, or if I'm doing a reading and I'm aware of someone's animal in their house and there's detail there, I will go there if it presents itself, but I don't specialize in it by any means. And I just started telling her, like, I'm aware of the soul of a dog. And she started crying, and she said, that's exactly who I want to hear from. And the interesting thing, which I didn't understand until the feedback of the session, was that this person also had a little short, squishy English bulldog with, just as much personality as I believe they all come with. So those bully breeds have a lot of personality. And her dog was totally different than mine, because even though I was aware of the image of my dog and the sense of my dog, and I'm sure the soul of my dog was there helping me and helping the communication, helping me understand, her dog, the way that this family's dog was communicating was showing me, it was really specific. It was so cool. This dog was showing me that they love to dress up. Now my dog hated to dress up. You couldn't get her to wear one of those cute holiday headbands. I mean, maybe 10 seconds if you're lucky. Like she wasn't into it. But this dog that was communicating in this session loved to dress up, and in fact was talking about several different like Halloween and holiday costumes that they had, like specific ones. I think one was like a unicorn, and this has been a long time too. So I'm trying to remember the exact specifics of it, but it was like these specific little outfits that this dog had, and that they would get if they were going to go to a special place or to a special trip, that the dog would get like a special outfit too. And then this dog was also showing me about the birthday parties, and because she showed me a little birthday hat. And what was funny is like my Cookie would have never, there's just no way. And this dog was talking about that the whole family, I mean, and this is my, my sitter's an adult. They also have children in the family. And the dog was showing me, the family would come and it would be my birthday party and I would have the hat and the whole thing. And she was validating all of it and saying, yes, we did every year. She's like, I know it's ridiculous, but we did celebrate our dog's birthday, and the family, if you've ever, if you have a family and have ever had a family dog or had a dog in your family, some dogs are members of the family in different ways, right? We all have our own ways. And this dog was celebrated every year, and then was also sharing that it's something we've done after the dog passes, that we had an extra birthday party. And my client had said yes, and it was really special. And then the dog shared some other ways that they were memorialized in the family. They had a specific portrait done, and there was something with the paw print. I can't quite remember now if it was like a Christmas ornament, but they had something also made with the paw print after the passing, and a really beautiful portrait done of the dog. So it was just really cool, and another example of how animals can communicate from the spirit world. Now, like I said, I don't consider myself an animal communicator per se, and that I don't like title myself to specialize in that area, but I'm open to it, and it does happen from time to time. And like I said, I just even this last weekend had a client, and they have a dog that they love that's part of their home. And we were doing a reading. Actually, they had someone come through from the spirit world, but most of the reading was about their career and their relationship and their, their personal development. And I was in my psychic awareness, I was aware of the dog in this person's life, and just had said some details about, I'm aware that you changed the dog's diet and it's helping with this, but that you're also doing this, and we're about to start some treatment for this. And so it was just some tidbits about the dog and the health of the dog, and likes and dislikes and that kind of a thing. So it will sometimes present itself if it is something that's going on in the person's life. And I've often had dogs come through over the years now. Like I said, it's not necessarily every single session. Sometimes they'll just make themselves known with a person, for example. Sometimes it'll be, maybe mom is the communicator who's primarily coming forward to talk to my client, but just makes me aware, let them know that their dog is here with me. And then I might become aware of a little dog, which is sometimes the case. Sometimes the dog just steps in on their own. But like I said, it's not just limited to dogs. Just me personally, I know that I've communicated with cats, and cats can communicate, but they all have different personalities too. So often, just like a loved one that's a person, a loved one that's an animal will share their personality, how they were in your life, in your relationship with them, which is kind of fun, because that's sometimes, especially if you had two dogs or two cats, that's sometimes how they'll distinguish themselves, is to tell or to share about their personality. And then often, if we've had two pets in our lives, we can identify them based on their personality or a quirk or something like that, a preference. So I've had cats, dogs, horses, like I said. I am trying to think. I feel like I've had some unusual animals. I will tell you, I've had one or two reptiles, but those were not as easy of communications. I feel like the cats, the dogs, the horses, and I have had a couple horses now over the years. And sometimes, especially, I'm thinking of one gal, younger gal that does horse competition that I read for a while back. And for someone like that, this horse is a partner, an athletic partner, a teammate, but also they have this relationship, this trust. They train together for hours and hours a day, every day, year after year. So this is a relationship, a working relationship. They know one another very, very well. But I do believe that there are other kinds of animals that can communicate. And I feel like if we're basing the idea of mediumship on this truth that it is a soul to soul communication, then if we're following that theory, any being with a soul should be able to communicate, particularly if we've had a personal relationship with them, right? Now, just like any other communication, I wouldn't expect celebrity animals to be showing up in your reading for no reason, just like I wouldn't expect celebrity people to be showing up in your reading for no reason unless you knew them and had a relationship with them of some kind. And I'll tell you, even then, I have had celebrities come through in sessions for a client. But I will tell you, almost every time I didn't realize that they were a celebrity necessarily, or who they were particularly as a celebrity, because really that's often not the most of someone, right? Especially if they had a personal relationship with the person. For example, suppose it's a parent that was a celebrity artist, right? Musician. Their kid doesn't want to hear about them as a famous musician. They want to hear about them as the parent and their relationship with them, right? That's what the parent's going to want to talk about. They're not going to want to talk about, they might allude to it. They might mention it. They might talk about it as a part of understanding them, or, maybe understanding why they weren't around as much, or certain experiences that we got to have that were special. There's a lot of reasons they could talk about it, but I would just speculate that in this made up example of communication, that the parent coming from the spirit world would want to communicate about the love that they have for their child who's still here in the living, not the career they had where they were loved by strangers, So just something to think about, the information that comes in the mediumship communications and why. So just like I wouldn't expect random celebs to be popping into a reading if you didn't know them, same with celebrity animals. I wouldn't expect them to be popping in for no reason. But not only in a mediumship session, for example, can we communicate with pets, but just like you have access to all of your human loved ones in the spirit world, you have access to your pet loved ones in the spirit world. Oh, bird. I've had pet birds come through. I feel like there are a couple other little, like not unusual, but ones that just don't pop to mind right now. I feel like there's one bigger animal too that I don't know if it was like a cow or I can't quite remember now, a bull maybe. But anyway, you can still feel and sense and communicate with your beloved animal souls who are on the other side. Sometimes you might feel them, sometimes you might sense them, sometimes they just might pop into your mind. When I was saying I hadn't really had many experiences of Cookie, I was actually thinking of not long after she passed, within, I want to say like the first week or so. At the time where I was living, there were hardwood floors, and it was the bedrooms upstairs and the main floor downstairs. And sometimes you would hear her little nails scratching across either the hardwood or the tile, depending on where she was. And I heard her walking across the floor because she would sometimes pace at night. And she was already gone, and I wasn't the only one that heard her in the house either, which was so interesting. So sometimes it might be something like that, just like it could be from a person. It can happen with your animals too. Sometimes, this is a funny one that someone was surprised to hear the other day when I told them, sometimes your animals that you still have in your home, like if you have another dog or cat or whatever, they will still be aware of your animal who's crossed over to the spirit world, because they don't know that they're not supposed to see them or sense them or feel them. They still feel them. So sometimes when your pet is, twisting their head to the side and staring in that corner like they're looking at something, and you're like, there's nothing there. What's going on? Sometimes they're aware of another pet or another person. They could be aware of your spirit people too, but also your spirit pets. And sometimes I did have, when I was talking about cats, I'm remembering one session I had where there were cats, and one of the ways that the cats were, one of the ways the spirit cat was identifying itself was it was saying, I used to always lay on this one ottoman because it got the best sun through the front window. And my kitty sibling who's still at home with my mom and dad, when I come around and when this other cat's aware of me, you'll notice that they jump out of my spot. They like to lay in my spot now because I'm not there. But when I'm around, when I'm visiting, they jump out of my spot for no reason. And my clients were like, oh my gosh, that's the craziest thing, because our cat that that's still living does do that for no reason. Sometimes from a dead sleep, we'll just wake up and get out of that spot. And it's not even, like they're being haunted kind of a thing. It's never like that. It's just an awareness. It's just they have an awareness, and that cat is there now and they're going to move. So yeah, sometimes pets and sometimes little kids are aware of spirit animals, as well as spirit people. So let me know if you have an animal on the other side that you have felt, and I'm so curious to know your experiences. You can leave them in the comments. You can also find me in the Joy's Soul Spa Facebook group for those of you that have Facebook, and I'm always happy for you to comment there about any of your experiences, and let me know about the beloved animals that you have on the other side, and if you felt them. Like I said, you can sometimes still feel them around, and just like I sometimes will do an exercise teaching people how to feel their loved ones, you can use the same exercise to feel your beloved pets. So thanks for joining me today for this little chat about pets. I have some exciting news. I have a free live workshop coming up. It is starting April 10th. It is going to be every day live with me for 5 days at noon Pacific, which is 3 p.m. Eastern, and I think it's 8 p.m. UK. This is embarrassing, but I haven't titled the workshop yet, but we're going to really be diving into deepening your intuition. If you feel like your intuition's blocked, I'm going to teach you why that might be and how to work around it. We're going to do some exercises, some intuitive or psychic, if you're comfortable with that word, exercises and experiences. That is going to be live in the Joy's Soul Spa Facebook group. I stream it live, but the replays are available for a full week, so you can get the lessons, because as we step into spring, I really, that it's time for renewal and for refreshed energy and time for new growth and expansion. So why not play with our psychic abilities, our intuitive abilities, because there's so much to sense energetically in the spring, right? It's wintertime, everything is kind of still and quiet, but there's more in the spring. So let's just really work with that energy, and let's get you some tools to start working with your own sensing, your own intuitive ability. And we'll do the exercise I was talking about to connect with a loved one in the spirit world. We'll do it during that workshop. So if you're interested and you haven't, even if you have been before, come again. I love seeing you guys, and they're really popular. And, you can comment in the on the live and I'll work with you, or you can even comment on the replays and I'll still be able to do a little bit of coaching with you on the exercises. If you're a member of my VIP Insiders email list, you will start getting the emails about that soon. If I haven't started sending them already, which hopefully I have, I think I will. If you are not already on that list, just go to my website, joyfulmedium.com. You can sign up for the 3-day free signs mini course, how to become a sign magnet. And you'll get on my VIP Insiders list and you'll get access to that free 3-day mini course all at once. Thanks for being here with me again, and big hugs, lots of love. Let me know if there are topics that you want to hear about, or guests that you want to have, or if you are a spiritual luminary, just drop me a line. The best way to get to me is through just email admin@joyfulmedium.com. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your week, and just know that you are still supported and loved by all of your animals on the other side. Big hugs, lots of love. Bye for now from inside the Spirit Speakeasy.